So I was constantly looking for answers, just like this conversation we're talking about. But I would always walk away, Shane, from those experiences only with temporary, what I call management solutions, because that's ultimately what we're given in traditional healthcare. We're not given a path to heal. We're not given tangible tips, like you just said, to reach our personal goals for our health. We're simply given what I call management solutions.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Carpe Diem Living the podcast. I am your host, Shane Gitman, and me and Dr. Elizabeth, our guest for today, we're just having too much fun. Before this recording, we've been talking for a good 30 minutes. So it's so crazy. Elizabeth actually said she felt like we were kindred spirits, which I absolutely agree. So you guys are in for a fun episode of just people just vibing and just having fun talking about things that we love, like holistic health. So welcome to the show, Elizabeth from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
Thank you so much, Shane. And Shane is so right. I was actually saying before we started recording, we're having way too much fun already. And I'm just so incredibly honored to be here with you and to talk to this audience of amazing people. I'm so honored and thrilled, and I can't wait.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it's so crazy. We were just talking about all types of things. And the main thing is just crazy weather, what's going on in the holistic world as far as health. So I'm just so excited to speak to Elizabeth today because she just has the wealth of knowledge right now. And I'm just excited to get her take on what's going on with currently in our world with COVID, her thoughts on root causes of disease and health conditions. So yeah, Elizabeth, just take it away and just start wherever you want to start.
We could go so many places. And at some point, I'd love to touch on something you and I were just talking about, which is a story that Shane and I share in common that I am 100% sure so many of our listeners do right now, which is that the story of how we got to where we are in holistic health, why that matters, and just our personal healing journeys, right, have everything to do with why you and I are where we are in our lives and our careers. So at some point we'll have to talk about that. But, like you were just saying, it's so interesting because we're living in a global pandemic, right? An unprecedented time for every single one of us in this lifetime. And it's fascinating for me coming into the holistic healing space during this time as a very traditional epidemiologist and classic doctor. That's the background I come from. So just for our listeners, if you don't know me, I am a classic epidemiologist, clinical doctor, and researcher. So I spent my career up till the past few years really being trained to be at the forefront of these types of situations. And what's been interesting to me, and I know Shane and I talked a little bit about this, is first of all, just to see the shift that it has made in all of our lives, right? We've all been sent into a time and place in our lives with the pandemic that whether you're isolating all of the time or not, every single one of us, our lives have been completely upheavaled. We are living in completely different environments. Our behaviors have had to change. Our schedules have had to change, our routines, the way we live, the way we consume, the way we shop, and everything is connected. And Shane, that's something I'm a big believer in, and I talk about a lot, is that in my profession, I feel like what I do for my clients and patients is that I connect the dots, right? Because everything is connected. But I feel like one thing that I notice as an epidemiologist looking at the patterns and trends that are going on in the world all around us is that as we've turned our focus onto the pandemic and this one very specific infection and issue, we've really turned our focus away from a couple of things that I think are very important facts. One is that there has never been a more important time than right now to take radical responsibility for your own health. And number two, all of the other things that exist in our society as far as health problems are not gone. They have not disappeared. In fact, if anything, they've become more important to talk about. That's important, just to think about how it's changed all of our lives. It's changed how we all consume. It's changed how we take care of ourselves and how we treat ourselves. And I think it's really put in front of all of us like this mirror, right? Where now is a time for us to make a choice where we're forced to spend more time with ourselves, and we all are dealing with that and reacting to it in very different ways. Some people are shutting down because when we get isolated and we have to make changes we weren't ready for, that can be very emotionally and mentally threatening. So some people react by turning back to like maybe unhealthy coping mechanisms, right? But this has been a time where some people have used it to really champion themselves and completely reclaim their lives and their health and change everything. So it's just been fascinating to me. So you have to let me know what you think, Shane. I'd love to know your perspective, like just to watch how this has all evolved and impacted our lives. And I think it's affected everybody physically, mentally, and emotionally in some way, shape, or form. And I think the consequences of that long term are only just now going to begin to start to reveal themselves. So I just feel like now, especially someone that comes from that traditional space, it's an even more important time to be advocating for the use and implementation of holistic measures that are all natural, that are safe, that can protect you and your health right now in the long term.
It's so true. And the one thing that came to my mind as you were talking about all this is the main reason why I believe that people are turning inward to bad coping mechanisms is because all of their outlets are gone.
Yep.
Going to the gym is gone. Being able to work. Some people like to go to work and do what they feel is their passion or what they're really good at. Seeing family, all those things that people would turn to have their sanity were taken away from them. And that's what I think just completely caused not only just like a trigger type of situation, but it's almost like, well, what do we do with ourselves? And I'll be the first to admit, I'm a busy bee type of person. I love being busy, but in a way where it's things I love to do. So when I'm like, oh, I have to be at home, I can't just freely go here and without a mask. So it's just so crazy. So I know everyone's handled their things differently. And I hope in a way, I mean, for some, they kind of say, well, this is our new normal. So I've kind of figured out what to do now, how to deal with things. But in the beginning, I was definitely really bummed out and my calendar is empty. What in the world? Like, this is so weird. Yeah. So I think the biggest thing was emotionally, and that was really hard. In the beginning, I was definitely indulging in more sweets because that's not my coping, but like I'm a sweet tooth type of person.
Yeah, like we all have stuff that comforts us.
Yeah. Right. And then at some point I was like, you know what? Enough of this. I am now going to do things that I've always wanted to do. I did a lot of cleanses. I dabbled more into like educating myself. So then I had my little time to just indulge. And then I was like, all right, let's turn this ship around. And then it ended up working out. So yeah.
I love that. And it's just so well said. You couldn't have said it any better. We had the ways that we would cope and all of the things we did as outlets were taken away from us. And then I think so many of us who weren't used to already doing a lot of just being alone and not having all of those other outlets, I feel like it's you're a little kid standing at the diving board and you don't want to jump in. And then someone came up and ran up behind all of us and pushed us in the deep end. And we were all in there like, what do I do? Please help me. It was like this huge shock to everybody's systems. And I think that happened to so many of us. And I'll definitely admit too, when it first started, I remember I was counseling a lot of people who were struggling with their children and their families to figure out, with kids asking mom and dad questions like, am I going to see my friends again? What's going to happen to me? So I spent a lot of time on the phone just counseling my patients and clients and their children, really talking to families on the phone, helping them understand what's going on. Why is this happening? How are we going to get through this? And I'll tell you, Shane, one thing I still dwell on is I think back to that time and I was telling kids, I'm never somebody that wants to give people false hope, no BS from me. I tell it like it is. I'm very much someone that stands in the voice of truth and integrity. And I think back and I realized I was telling kids, you're probably going to get to see your friends this summer. You're probably going to get to go back to school next year. And I'll tell you, I was wrong. I'm somebody that, especially as a doctor, I think it's very important to admit that none of us know everything. And we are all, just like every human being in the world, we're all wrong sometimes. But I went through that time like I think a lot of us did. We all thought it was just going to be a couple of months. So I thought like, well, all right, whatever, if I let myself go and I just indulge a little bit for a month or two to get myself through this, that's okay. But then as time went on, like you said, you realize, so I'm not going to eat snacks and do this all year long. So I'm going to have to decide at some point, if I'm going to dust myself off and turn it around or not. And I think even in spite of that Do you feel like this? I think now, here we are in 2021 in a whole new calendar year. And I definitely still, in spite of the fact that time has passed, so we should have all had an opportunity, I guess, to make an adjustment. I think that most people to some degree are still struggling a lot in some ways. And that long-term management of stress is really tough. And like you and I both know, coming from the holistic health realm, and I can share with our audience, this is something I came so close to actually pursuing for my doctoral work. And I'm an expert in stress and how it impacts health and chronic wellness. And the longer that we allow stress to negatively interfere with our lives without doing something beneficial, whether it's mental, physical, or emotional, to help just reduce the impact it has on our body and our health, the more likely we are to start having problems. That long-term effect of stress can really start to creep up on us. And it might not be even this year, it might be down the road in weird and different ways that you're not expecting. But I really think it's taken such a toll on everybody in unique ways.
I know. And it's funny because when you watch shows and movies, the doctor will tell the patient, like, oh, just don't stress out, don't stress out. But I think it's really important to highlight, well, give that person options. How can they de-stress? Because it's so, I feel like those things like, don't worry, but I think people need to be given more, not just more information, give them ideas how they can apply it to their own lives, because everyone's lifestyle is so different. So give them like maybe three ideas, and that will get the ball rolling for that individual person.
Shane, if everyone could see my face right now, my jaw is just like hanging open, because I feel like Shane and I swear we must be like reading each other's minds, but we definitely must have been born on the same energetic wavelength, because everything you just said made me like, you just gave me such a huge energetic boost, because what you said is just exactly right. So let's talk about that. How often do we all go, I think especially women, right? I think traditional healthcare in particular has a knack for putting the blame back on us women. But how often do we all go to doctors or physicians in the traditional realm? And we talk about this stuff, right? You will tell your PCP, well, I haven't been feeling so great this year. I'm a little depressed. And even me, I had this experience with my own PCP as a doctor. I was asked a series of questions, and based on my answers, she said, have you battled depression in the past? I think that might be something for us to talk about. And I have, and I'm happy to share with our audience all of the things that I've healed myself from. And I am no stranger to mental and emotional health issues. I've healed myself from PTSD, anxiety, and depression. And I'm no stranger to how devastating those things are to you on a day-to-day basis. But what I was told was, well, here's a referral, and you could call this person and maybe you'd like to talk to them. And I thought, but that's not an answer. And I will tell you, Shane, that is such a part of my personal story too. And so for anyone here who doesn't know me at all, I am happy to share the story that took me over a decade to even be able to tell, because of my PTSD and those things I was struggling with. But 14 years ago, I had a surgeon leave me bleeding internally after a surgery and never told me about it. So 14 days later, I was in the hospital, literally hours within my own death, in septic shock. I had to say goodbye to my family and friends, and was told that it was, a 1 in a million shot that I was going to come out of this alive. But against all of the odds, the surgeon who saved my life. And I have no doubt in my mind that has everything to do with the fact that I was destined to stay here to fulfill my purpose, which is in this lifetime to help other people heal. But after that was just the beginning of my fight. I accumulated tons of mental, emotional, and physical chronic illnesses, pain, symptoms, and conditions. So I spent years after that going from specialist to specialist, doctor to doctor. I had so many different issues: IBS, chronic constipation, bloating, anxiety, depression, migraines, really bad acne, hormonal imbalances. And I was at that point on the borderline of, a lot of different autoimmune issues. So I was constantly looking for answers, just like this conversation we're talking about. But I would always walk away, Shane, from those experiences only with temporary, what I call management solutions, because that's ultimately what we're given in traditional healthcare. We're not given a path to heal. We're not given tangible tips, like you just said, to reach our personal goals for our health. We're simply given what I call management solutions. They're temporary solutions to give you relief for a certain period of time, but not indefinitely. And those management solutions are not designed to target the root causes of all of those signs and symptoms and health issues that are now on the surface. So when we go into these scenarios, we're in these doctors' offices. And as a doctor, I think to myself, don't they realize, because I have from the very beginning of my training, what those people are in that room looking at you as? They're saving grace. They're desperate for answers. They would do anything to feel free from the physical or mental or emotional symptom that they are in there asking you for your guidance and expertise and help for that day. But I feel like they don't necessarily feel that, but I do. When you're sitting there as the patient in that moment, all you want is to feel like somebody is listening and understands. And when you walk out that door with just those prescriptions or those management solutions or just that referral to talk to somebody else, it just feels like a continuation of this disconnection, right? And you're ultimately not getting the answers you need. And that, Shane, was one of the many reasons I walked away from that to start my career, because I realized that somebody out there, just like me, I waited for years, decades, for somebody to put the pieces of my puzzle together and say to me, this is what's going on, Elizabeth. This is what's underlying all of your problems. And here's what we're going to do now to help you reach your goal. Because my goal, Shane, was to reach optimal health, mind, body, and spirit. My goal was not to manage my health problems and feel only halfway like I was showing up for the rest of my life. I was not willing to accept that, but nobody was giving me any answers. Nobody was giving me tangible tips. And even the people that did, there'd come a point a few months later where I'd get that gut feeling, and I would just know. I think I'm not in the place where I know I should be if this was the answer, if this was the thing that was going to get me to the other side of these health issues. So I walked away and I created my holistic approach that I now deliver through my practice to do exactly what you and I are talking about right now, to fill this massive gap that you and I have just highlighted, because we need somebody like me who's going to put the pieces of your puzzle together, take all of your experiences, all of your symptoms, all the different guidance you've been given by all of those different doctors, all of the different prescriptions, treatments, and things that you've been through. Somebody that's going to take all of that, put the pieces of your healthcare puzzle together and connect the dots across all of that stuff to first identify your root causes, create a comprehensive plan, and build a customized healing regime that's designed to actually get you where you want to go. Because I'll tell you, I can't even think back to one doctor's appointment in my life where the doctor said to me, "What do you want, Elizabeth? What's your goal? Do you want to take a pill?" Because some people do. And for some people, that may be enough. But for me, it wasn't. And I feel that people deserve the opportunity to achieve optimal health, mind, body, and spirit if that's what they want. And so I created the path to help them get there. But like you just said, I just felt like this was such a perfect time for us to talk about this, because you just nailed it so much. And like you said, tangible tips, like don't just tell me, well, go talk to somebody or manage your stress or do something about your depression. Tell me what to do. And if you don't know the answer, that's okay. But see, I have to tell you, that's something else I don't get often from most traditional docs that I do give to my patients and clients. It's okay. And I would have more respect for a doctor that said to me, "You know what, Elizabeth, I can't answer your question with confidence, but we're going to figure out the answer together." I would much rather someone say that to me than give me a prescription or just walk out the door because they don't want to be bothered to answer my questions, But we've had so much power taken away from us, I think, from these types of experiences, haven't we?
It's so true. And it makes you feel like it gets stripped away over time. That's what happened to me is I went in, I'm going to solve this. And years pass and you're just frustrated, feeling helpless. You think this is your life sentence. And for me, being such an investigative type person, I was like, there is no way that this is it. I am way too young to be dealing with this, because everything started happening to me in my early 20s. And I was like, how am I this? it didn't add up. It just did not add up. And I knew that there had to be a solution. I will find it. I'm not going to give up. And that just goes to show that we have to be our own health advocates. We have to put our foot down if someone's just, because we're the ones experiencing it, right? So why would we just accept a half-assed answer and then just be like, oh, it's fine. I'm just going to suffer more with side effects and whatever else comes with this prescription.
100%. Gosh. So, and I can tell you the story I just shared with all of you, that all started for me when I was 18. So for me, I actually, when I was 3 years old, if you can believe it, started having chronic UTI to the point that they actually even screened my parents, which is something, it's the standard of care that a pediatrician has to do. But I was getting them so frequently, Shane, that the doctors actually screened my parents for child abuse because they just thought, this little girl, it doesn't make sense. But I will tell you, I have amazing parents and I was not being abused, fortunately. And fortunately, because I do know there are children that that's not the case for, and my heart bleeds for that. My mom took me home, and just like you and I, she was being my own detective. She eliminated all of like the chemicals and stuff like scents, dyes, perfumes from my life, started washing my clothes in free and clear stuff and using safer cleaning products. And from then until I went to college, I was a healthy, normal kid and I had a great life. And then I went to college and I was like you, 18 years old, freshman in college, literally every 3 to 4 weeks leading up to my kidney trauma, which was what caused my life-threatening health issues. On antibiotics at student health all the time, just like you, thinking to myself, what's going on with my body? Like, I'm only 18 at the time. I remember thinking, I can't even legally drink, but I am so sick. I didn't even get to have that milestone yet. Didn't even get to go have a bar shot yet. And I'm sick. When you're that young, there's those let's face it, especially here in the United States, there's those milestones that we all look forward to. And for me, those milestones were not what I envisioned in my mind because I was struggling along that path. And like you said, then you just get beaten down over time. You go, gosh, I was so like you. Every step of the way, I'd go into that new doctor's office full of hope, wide-eyed and bushy-tailed, like this is going to be the one. I've researched her online. I picked her out from her website. And
I have my list ready to talk about. Oh my gosh. I'm like, do you have time? Because I have details, dates, everything. Oh.
With my life story and think this is it. I know it. This is going to finally be the one. This is going to be the one that's going to be the game changer. And then it wouldn't be. And like you said, then the more I lived that experience over time, it wears you down. It just does. And I just think we're entering into a time and era, especially given the pandemic, that we should be demanding individualized and personalized care, and we should be demanding the answers. And I just think it's fascinating too, because did you ever think about this? I think to myself, we are service providers. That's what doctors are. We're service providers. And I know I would not pay a plumber to come to my house and be at my house for 5 minutes and then talk me into spending thousands of dollars. I'd be like, oh no, dude, I think you need to look a little closer.
Great example.
I don't care where you went to school. Right? But right, you wouldn't think twice to pay your doctor for that same type of result. Why is it that we are willing to accept less than adequate results from the people who get paid more money than most other service providers out there? We should be demanding excellence. We should be demanding answers. We should be demanding individualized attention and customized care and solutions. And I think that in traditional medicine and science, I think it's no secret that we have not solved the mystery of chronic illness, and that while it has served us to look at things from a siloed perspective, it served science and research because we needed to tease apart everything in its individual pieces to understand the underpinnings of how everything works physiologically. How are all these systems functioning individually? What are all their roles biologically and even at a cellular level? How are they impacting us and our bodies? But we've also done the population a massive disservice along the way by never coming to the bridge, to the side of the bridge where I stood at when I walked away from my traditional career, looking at the other side of the bridge, of that gap, and realizing there was no bridge to get you there, because it was time for us to also start to integrate a comprehensive approach where we start to say, okay, the siloed approach is great. We're going to continue to do that for research purposes. And sometimes for a specific symptom or issue, it's very important and needed. But now we're in this place where the majority of people are dealing with way more than one physical and emotional issue at the same time. And by dismantling the human body, we've now gotten ourselves into a situation where we don't put the pieces of the puzzle together. We don't take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And I think that it's really time for us to look at human beings like the things that they are, which are, guess what? Complicated things. Because you can't study a human being in a controlled environment. We can prove that anything works in a controlled environment, but guess what? That is not a reflection of the real world. We do not live in a controlled environment. We cannot control things to death to figure out if something really works. What we need to be doing is putting it out into the real world population to understand, is it going to work when things are complicated? Because that's real life. So I really think it's time for us to be integrating. And you and I were talking about earlier. And for me, what I do in my practice is, I'm not saying that Western medicine and science is not wonderful, because it is. And look at what it's done. And it is phenomenal at saving people from catastrophic illnesses. The advancements we have made in surgery are unparalleled and will continue. And those are so needed and necessary. But what I'm saying is that there's a time and place like now that I think we're in, when it's time to recognize that it's time to create a new field, which is why what I do is merge the very best of Western medicine and science with the holistic, natural, energetic, and spiritual components that necessitate true healing. It's time to merge science and spiritualism. It's time to merge Eastern and Western. And I think that keeping them segmented forever is just not going to get us where we ultimately want to go. And I think that anyone be crazy. I would tell you you're crazy if you could look me in the eyes and say to me that, wouldn't you love to wake up tomorrow and feel your very best, mind, body, and soul? Wouldn't you? I would love nothing more than to have that every day. And I think anybody would. I think that a lot of us, though, have just almost given up on that fact, because you go through life, like you said, through these experiences, and a lot of us get beaten down, and we just accept that, all right, well, I guess this is just the way it's going to have to be, and I'm just going to have to accept it,
Right. And, it's crazy because I actually saw a commercial recently and it just made me cringe so hard. So how we have dispensers for candy, for K-cups, whatever. There was literally a dispenser for your prescription meds.
No.
Okay, let's now make it fun to have your pills spit out for you every morning. And I was like, no, that we are going backwards. The goal should be no prescriptions. You don't need to rely on them. There's no magic pill for what your body needs. And the goal is to get to, if you're on 3, hopefully you can bring it down to 1. It just really killed me when I saw that. This is why more of us that have that passion and knowledge about holistic health need to come together and keep talking about this.
Yeah, we can't stop talking about it. And I love this too. What you're making me think of right now is, think about this, everybody. And Shane and I can talk about it now. I just feel like you just brought this to the surface in my mind. Think about it. When you connect with somebody, especially someone you haven't seen or talked to for a while, what are like the top 5 topics you usually talk about? And I will guarantee that even if you're not thinking of this, one of the top five things you talk about is health. And unfortunately, not from the positive perspective, from the illness perspective. Think about it. I can think about reflect on countless conversations with friends and loved ones where you sit down, you're like, oh, I haven't seen you for a while. How's it going? Well, oh boy, well, my dad's got this going on, and geez, and so had to have surgery, and oh my gosh, my aunt had COVID, and oh boy, and I've been dealing with this terrible thing, and oh my God, and I think I'm depressed. And and my leg, I get this weird leg pain all the time now. What do you think that is? Think about it. This is how we all talk to each other. I think that it is time for people like you and I and all of our colleagues to help shift the conversation in society from chronic illness to chronic wellness. But the only way for that to happen is for you and I and all of our colleagues to keep having this conversation. Because wouldn't you rather sit down and have a conversation that, oh, how are you? How's it going? Great. Oh my gosh, let me tell you about this amazing hack that I learned for my mindset the other day to deal with stress. It's literally been a game changer. And oh my gosh, let me tell you about how my daddy has type 2 diabetes. He lost 100 pounds and he's been doing so great because we helped him get on a healthy diet that he's off of all of his meds. Oh my gosh, let me tell you, we rather be in that area, in that
vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't do that. We're always like, oh boy. Let me tell you what.
We all have things
my dad's always like, everything hurts. Boy, that's not the way we should all be living. But I think we've all been to a degree trained to believe that that's as good as it's ever going to get.
That's a normal. And I can't tell you how many times, because in my immediate circle per se, my closest friends and family that are in my area, I am the only one that really pursues this holistic lifestyle, like to a T. I mean, one of my best friends, she's vegan. She has gone on herbs and CBD, all that good stuff. So she understands. But overall, it is such a refreshing conversation when I can share with others. Oh, I just did this great tapping exercise the other day, and now I don't have this sweat block. Or, oh, I found this great herb and it helped my dad get rid of his gout and my mom off of her high blood pressure medication. These are real scenarios that have happened in my life. And I want that to be normal. I mean, I'm not the type that like pushes anything on anyone ever. It's just my job to bring awareness and mention it, because I wouldn't feel right if I didn't share the things I know that could benefit that other person. So that's why whenever someone does tell me, oh, my anxiety has been really bad, or, oh, I'm dealing with like really bad acne, and right away I'm thinking, scanning my files in my brain, what can I tell this person that can potentially make a difference for them? And I know it's going to work. So I get so excited and enthusiastic. Here's the link. Here's a promo code if I have it. I mean, go ahead and do what you need to do and let me know in a month or so what changes for you.
Yeah.
So I just think it's beautiful and very powerful for someone in your position to really make that merger, because there's not enough doctors that started off in the Western side of things and are now and more into functional medicine and the holistic approach. It's very rare. So kudos.
Yeah, Shane. And that's the thing. I'm literally clinically trained to identify, understand, and analyze the root causes of symptoms and health issues. And while I know that that is super important from a global perspective, and that's where epidemiology traditionally lives, I don't know any other holistic health coach and healer out there like me who applies an epidemiologist background to that individual singular level, to get down to the root causes of why we feel the way we feel. And I have never been more passionate. And just like you just said, I feel like all these things we're talking about, and I think in the traditional realm where I come from, my very traditional colleagues tend to believe that's more like anecdotal evidence. But here's what I want to say to that. It is 100% absolutely not anecdotal evidence. The missing link is that there's not somebody like me who's willing to bring that over into the research realm and merge these two worlds and produce the research, which I'm in a position to do with all of our work that we're all doing, even if it's observational, to say, look at this powerful observation. Here I am, I'm an epidemiologist, and I can tell you for a fact that there is methodological and analytical evidence to prove that what we are doing makes a difference.
Yeah.
And maybe, just maybe, an even bigger difference than those drugs you're studying.
Yeah. I was about to say, did everyone hear that? Did you hear that loud and clear? Because it's very valuable information. It's like the stamp of approval. This is real, please. Like, oh Oh my gosh. I swear we could chat for hours. And
I seriously could talk to you all day.
seriously, I feel like we almost need to do like a part 2 at some point, because this is just like the tip of the iceberg, I feel.
And it truly is. It truly is. And you and I, collaborative wise, have so much to do, and we're going to have so much to talk about and share with all of you.
Right. This conversation literally lit my soul on fire, just reaffirming on why I do what I do for this show, and just in my community, why I'm going to be a holistic health coach this year officially.
An amazing one at that.
Oh, thank you so much. Seriously. I mean, I may not be a doctor, but definitely I know that my experiences is meant to inspire others to get on their own healing journey. If I can help one person, the mission's done. But I know the impact that it's created in 19 countries right now. Can you imagine that we're speaking to 19 countries that can hear this type of knowledge and information? This is huge right now.
Huge. And Shane, you just said something so important. And I think it's such an important message for everyone out there. And I said this to Shane before we even started talking today on the podcast. I told her, like, hey, look, I'm a doctor, but I will tell you this. Even as a doctor who literally studied and trained for 15 years of higher education, I will tell you this: there is no better teacher in the entire world than you in your lived experience. What I learned from my own healing journey, I couldn't have got out of any textbook in the world, because guess what? It's not in a book. They're not writing this stuff. And the reason is, I think, because people like you and I were sent out here into the world to realize it was time for us to give this stuff a voice. But I just want everyone to hear that. Please know that whatever you're going through out there, don't let that stop you. You are going to help people, and your story and everything you're going through right now in this moment today, you're going to use to help change other people's lives someday. So please know that. And that's just something I always hope people know, because I think too, that bothers me that a lot of doctors, I think, make you feel like you're up here. Like we're all down here and they're all up here and we're all down here. But I have to tell you, that is just not the way life is. None of us have the magic answer. None of us know. But there are people like Shane and I out here who are going to help people and guide people and give them the support and compassionate care they need to reach their real goals.
And honestly, I got to say, if I were in the position of having my own practice, a doctor, if someone were to ask me, or if I did have a patient that was very stressed out, clearly they have a lot of inflammation, they have a lot of body aches and migraines, whatever the case, my first advice I would talk to them more as a friend. That is like my approach. It's like, how would you tell a loved one that was coming to you for advice and venting? You wouldn't just send them off and be like, oh, just go read a book, or, go on a walk. Like, that can't be the vibe. That cannot be the approach at all, because not only does it create like this negative experience cycle, it just does not put them in the right mindset of the future for their health.
Exactly. So not even close. It is not setting somebody up on a strong foundation to be successful, which is something else I think is so important that I do with my clients and patients. We can talk about physical, mental, and emotional health to death, but the truth is, if you are not going to pursue your healing journey from an inner place of strength, then we can do all that stuff on the surface to death. But eventually that stuff, that foundation of yours, that inner work, it's got to get done, and we have to address it. And to me, that's where I always start with people. Where are you at in your head? Let's figure out what's your foundation. I always think about it this way and explain it to my patients this way. If you bought a house, you would not skip over your home inspection. And if your home inspector said to you, this foundation has leaks and cracks in it, would you decide, I'm going to build on top of that thing? No, you would repair it. This is the same. It's your body, you're exactly the same. We got to figure out, are there leaks and cracks where you're energetically even leaking that we can seal up and really get strong so that you feel confident and empowered, and then you head into that journey.
Oh my gosh, your patients are so blessed to have you. Seriously, anyone that gets to work with you.
I struggled with confidence all the way through my graduate programs. One of the reasons being because, Shane, when I was working in a very traditional clinical environment, I used to get in trouble almost on a daily basis by my superiors, because they would pull me away from my patients and say, you're spending too much time with them. You have to stop.
Oh,
The last time, one time I finally stuck up for myself because I was consoling a patient who had lost a loved one prior to her visit with me that day, and she needed my emotional support. And I said to my superior, I said, under no circumstances will I be following that instruction. And here's why, because I will be giving my patients today all of the time that they require from me. And I walked away. It didn't go over so well, but that's just how I roll.
Amazing. First of all, you are just a breath of fresh air. Like, because I can't tell you enough how many doctors we're hitting our, 15.
They're like,
oh, I'm running late for another patient. I was like, ma'am, I'm sorry, but we are not even in the meat of why I came here today. And it took like a month for me to see you. So sorry, we're going to have to sit this one and work it out.
Good for you. I'm proud of you for being an advocate for yourself. And I know you and I have said that, and that's such another, I think, big message from you and I today is be an advocate for yourself. Don't let them push you around.
Oh my gosh. This has just been such a wonderful conversation. And I guess you guys stay tuned because it looks like me and Elizabeth are going to have quite some projects coming up in the future. And I cannot wait to share when we figure out what that is exactly. But hey, let you guys know. Yes. So Dr. Elizabeth, please let everyone know where they can find you online, connect with you, because you're just amazing. So where can they find you online?
So I would love it if you come hang out with me. You can find me on Instagram at healthytransformations_heart. You can also find me on Facebook, and you can head to my website, healthytransformationswithheart.com. I've actually got some really cool new stuff planned. I've got a new freebie coming out that's like an awesome shopping list. So basically my go-tos for anything and everything you can imagine on your holistic journey, from help from self-care to supplements. And you can hop on my email list. We're going to be sending out a monthly newsletter, not so that we don't overload your inboxes, but just lots of good holistic tips and tricks. I give lots of client lessons, tips that you can literally tangibly go out and implement. So I'd love it if you come join me. And if you're interested in working with me at all, you can find a application for free consult calls, which is just how I roll. All of my initial phone calls with people are free. So you can fill out an application for a free consult call if you're interested.
Amazing. And of course, we're going to have all of Elizabeth's links in the description box and every outlet that this will be posted on. So I cannot wait. And I'm pretty sure people will be reaching out to you. There's just no way. I'm sure everyone else is just as excited as I am. I
have to tell you, Shane, and I know we bonded over this already, but I'm such a big believer in energy and the power of it because I've experienced its healing power. So I just want to say that very much with sincerity to all of you listening, I'm sending you guys all just a big boost of positive and uplifting energy today. And I'm so grateful that you listened.
No, thank you all so much for tuning in, and just stay tuned and we'll catch you guys all at the next episode. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.